deep dive mythology,
lore,
Dungeons and Dragons.
Hello and welcome to the Creative Thinker Podcast.
We're back. It's just been 2 weeks that we were off.
Life things.
Yeah, life things. We're back at it. We're excited to be here. And guess what? I mean, you should know. It's
No
the title.
pod fade. No pod fade.
No
Go
pod-
ahead. Sorry.
What? Based on the title of the episode, you're here. We're talking about red dragons today. We're excited to get into a little bit of mythology, a little bit more D&D lore, and then we're gonna go into some stats here at the end of the episode. I'm really excited about dragons and very, very excited about this episode, Red Dragons. Let's get to it. We're going straight into mythology. Take it away.
Who doesn't want to go to a fantasy carnival where they're serving red dragon on a stick? That's what I want to know.
Ooh, that sounds really good.
A little bit of fried red dragon.
I'm particularly hungry right now.
Oh, nice.
so any dragon on a stick sounds good.
Tastes like chicken. All right. So, mythology, red dragons. The Welsh dragon is the main focus of my research this go round. So if there's any other red dragons you want to hear about, let us know, and I will check that out for you. Who doesn't want somebody else to do their research?
Oh, dude, for real.
So
I feel
come on, hit us up. Courtesy of Geoffrey of Monmouth, with a G, Geoffrey, he wrote the largely fictitious History of the Kings. The History of the Kings of Britain, sorry. It was written in the 12th century. Good old Geoffrey of Monmouth. Brought us a little bit of mythology. He seems to be a bit of a jokester, a good sense of humor on this guy.
Oh yeah,
as a lot of British people are pretty sarcastic in their wit and a very enjoyable sense of humor, especially over there in Wales. A little nod to them because they listen. So what's up? So anyway, he wrote about Vortigern,
what
which
a
is
name.
Yeah. It's not even a name, actually.
Oh, really?
Yes, we don't know his name. It's actually just a British leader in the 5th century. But Vortigern means sort of like supreme leader.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's literally, they didn't even write down this man's name. They hate him so much. We'll get into that here in a moment. Yes.
Look at that.
So he was experiencing a war where he invited the Saxons. I don't know if you know much about the Saxons, but they were Prince Arthur's main enemy.
Okay.
And Vortigern is the man who invited them to fight alongside of Britain.
Okay.
What ended up happening is the Saxons won the war, and instead of just fucking off and
instead of going back to doing their thing.
Yeah, letting Britain keep their land. Yeah, instead of that, they stuck around. They're like, we're in charge now. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So Vortigern essentially, I know I'm butchering that, but he essentially gave away the land of Britain to the Saxons.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, what a dickweed. So Geoffrey of Monmouth writes about him being a lush, a drunk, somebody who's very preoccupied with sex and drugs and rock and roll.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of the
Sounds like a fun dude.
Yeah, British rock and roll 5th century. So look up that mythology. Now, so as he is learning, he is in a precarious place, both with his countrymen and with the Saxons. Vortigern decides to build a castle.
Okay.
His castle, he uses the best engineers, the best architects of the land, and he's like, build this thing. And they start working. They get pretty far along. It collapses.
Oh, so maybe not the best engineers.
Vortigern has just a shitty life. This poor man.
That's why no one remembers him.
Yeah, and everybody hates him.
Interesting.
He's a walking accident. So he rebuilt again the castle, collapsed. Again, collapsed.
Really?
Okay, so he starts talking to his advisors, all the people he gets his wisdom from, and they say, you know what this castle needs? A sacrifice.
Good old sacrifice.
Good old sacrifice.
Things aren't going right.
Make sure it's somebody without a father.
Oh, God.
And then you're just going to sacrifice them and sprinkle their blood on top of this castle.
Okay.
Nice.
Like
okay.
The grounds of where the castle's going to be built, or like
Yes.
the castle that is actively being built. There's just going to sprinkle.
Oh, it's collapsed. So, this pile of rock.
Okay,
yes.
okay.
This disgusting pile of rock that is Vortigern's shame.
Yeah.
Incarnate, right? So
Vortigern's
guess who
shame.
he
That's a
finds.
cool
Yeah.
term.
Right? We need to write a short story.
Yeah.
So guess who he finds to sacrifice?
I would have no idea unless I looked at the note. So I see a name, and I'm assuming that's
Merlin or Emrys, which is also important to the name of the castle itself, which is Dinas Emrys. Anyway,
Okay.
I'm butchering that as well. Dinas, I have no idea, but he gets Merlin,
Mhm.
and all of his advisors say Merlin is the person we need to sacrifice, and instead of just showing up and getting sacrificed, Merlin's like, hell no,
Yeah, yeah.
I ain't doing that. I ain't doing that. So Merlin stands up for himself,
Okay.
and he says, what you really need to know about this castle, Vortigern, is that there's a lake underneath it. And at the bottom of the lake are two rocks that are holding dragons, one red and one white.
Oh, interesting. How does Merlin know this?
He's a wizard. Fuck it. So, so
right.
Vortigern listens to him.
Okay.
He gives a pretty convincing speech that you can read in Joffrey of Monmouth's actual written text. But it's pretty dry. But he gives a rousing speech. Vortigern listens. He drains the lake, which he finds underneath the castle.
Okay.
Digs underneath it, finds the lake, drains it, finds the rocks that hold the white dragon and the red dragon. They immediately wake from a deep slumber and start fighting.
Interesting.
Their battle is legendary.
Yeah.
They're ripping and shredding each other to bits, tearing apart the village.
Are they fighting? Are the dragons fighting each other?
Each other.
Oh,
Yes.
snap. Okay.
Yes. It is white on red crime. No, I don't know.
Throwing hands on sight.
Yeah. So they have this just glorious battle that tears everything to shreds. And then the white dragon, because of its ferocity, its very animalistic nature, it looks like it's going to win. This
Okay.
thing is just, it's bigger. It's just tearing the red dragon to pieces. But the red dragon is consistent, and it's so passionate about its place of being, this land that it calls home.
Yeah.
It's not giving up, and it eventually wins out.
Cool.
Go Red Dragon. Okay. Red Dragon's a winner. We
Yes.
back winners on this show, Creative Thinker Podcast.
Yeah.
So Red Dragon wins.
Okay. Does that red dragon have a name, or was it just the story of the red dragon?
You know, I couldn't find a name for this dragon. I wish I could have. I'm scrolling through I have it pulled up. This is both from worldhistory.org and whales.com. WALLES, not, the fish. Mammal. Whoa. Whoa, the mammal.
Don't offend anyone.
Location, not mammal. Okay. But I'm scrolling through world history because it's a little bit more comprehensive, and I'm not finding a name of the dragon.
I was just curious if they even mentioned the name in the stories, because I feel like names are important, and if they had one, it would be cool.
But
if
Wales has a red dragon on their flag, and they have a name for the flag, but I don't know if they have a name for the dragon. I'm sure they do by now.
Gotcha.
But I don't know if it was a part of this story.
Gotcha.
Apologies. Something else to look up. So
there's always more research to do, right?
yes, always. Who doesn't love
Always
doing
just a little
someone
bit
else's
more.
research? Someone want to help us with our research? Here we go. So Merlin comes back and he talks to Vortigern, because Vortigern has now seen the very dragons that Merlin told him about. And
Okay.
he's a little bit impressed, a little bit shocked, but he also wants to know, what does this mean? How would you know this? And Merlin tells him that the white dragon represents the Saxons and the red dragon represents the Britons. So
Interesting.
as they're under this cruel rule of the Saxons, who have taken over their land mercilessly, the red dragon foretells the coming of King Arthur or Prince Arthur. The Pendragon.
Yeah.
The man, the myth, the legend, the boar of something. What is it? The boar of something.
Cornwall.
Oh, boar of Cornwall. Nice. You just knew that off the top of your head. I had to look at notes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Totally knew it.
You are dope. So basically, this was an action that was a foretelling of a future event. So yeah, that Arthur was on the way.
Okay.
So, just something I forgot to mention. Vortigern entered into this agreement, and it's called Celcine. And it's weird that Britain had a word for Celcine as an agreement of like a weaker party entering into an agreement with a stronger party, and then those two entities to join as though they were one, and then separate as though they never helped each other, essentially. So
Oh,
there
that's
is
interesting.
there is a certain agreement that was commonplace in their culture that Vortigern entered into, supposedly, that in good faith, that he thought these people were going to relinquish what he allowed them control of when they were done, because that was common practice of the day. So that was one of the more sympathetic voices in history.
Mm.
So maybe he's a Celcine guy and it just didn't work out for him. Vortigern, the Celcine guy.
Yeah.
Okay, so we get it. This is preempting Prince Arthur. And the interesting thing is that Dinas Emrys is the name of the castle.
Mhm.
In 1945, Dinas Emrys was excavated, a lot of big words today,
Mhm.
excavated.
Yeah.
And underneath it, they found a great lake with two large rocks in it.
That's crazy.
So, yeah, and it dated back obviously to the 5th century. So are dragons real? Are they not? Once again,
Who can say?
who can say?
They're hidden in the rocks underneath the castle, I guess.
We end up with a Welsh maybe.
Yeah. Well, that is quite interesting.
And you know who succeeded Vortigern in his rule, in his reign?
I don't know.
Uther Pendragon's brother.
Uther.
So the uncle of Arthur Pendragon,
Oh,
the Boar of Cornwall.
well, that's interesting.
So there's
That's cool.
another largely fictitious story from Joffrey of Monmouth. So that is the main mythology that I found. It's cool because it's still prominent on their flag, and a lot of things in Wales that have a great big, soccer teams too. Great big red dragon.
Yeah. So, did the dragon have like any significance aside from like the foretelling of, I guess, King Arthur coming? Right. That's what his whole purpose was.
Yes.
Because I know in our other dragons episode we talked about how dragons tend to like bring life or bring some type of symbolism in some of these older stories or mythologies. Was there anything like that you could see? Like, what's the theme of the red dragon? What does it represent aside from that, or is that all it represents?
So there was some interesting stuff about how basically Merlin's speech in the stories by Joffrey.
Mhm.
Basically, his speech mirrored a lot of like a Bible speech that was given. And to me, it sounded like I didn't get into the Bible stuff about, because I didn't want to mix my metaphors too much. But since you're asking,
Mhm.
it sounded a lot like John the Baptist role, where he's like preceding Jesus. It
Okay.
sounds like this dragon was a long dormant spirit that would then, be the galvanizing force that would heal the land.
Mhm.
It's like he who comes after me be greater than me. He's going to like fight to take down the idea
Mhm.
of the Saxons, and then later Arthur comes along and kills them.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
ultimately defeats them. But yeah, so I'm not for sure what the overall theme is, but yeah, I knew it was sort of a summary of how everybody was feeling being subjugated by an outside group of people without their say so, right? The king just decided and everybody was pissed.
Gotcha. Well, that's cool. It's interesting.
Weird.
I had no idea. We were talking about mythology, dragon mythology. We were like, man, there's a lot of red dragon mythology.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's fun. That's I'm
It's
enjoying.
kicking us off. Ooh, yanked I almost threw my microphone
No,
across the
don't
room.
get angry. I was trying to give you a compliment.
Yeah, you son of a throw my microphone at your face. Okay. All right, so that's how I'm kicking us off.
Yeah.
How do we get from there to D&D lore? Where are we at?
Yeah. So it's gonna be a kind of a big jump because I feel like the mythology that is here in this Welsh mythology again seems to be like this spirit and this foretelling of King Arthur or a foretelling of someone. That is not what like the dragon lore that we're about to go into is going to be like. at all.
Does it look like the dragons that were around the 5th century? 4 legs and
Yeah, so it'll
big wings
definitely,
and
as far as
spitting fire.
so what the type of dragon that I'm going to be talking about is particularly the Dungeons and Dragons, red dragons. There's the most information on that, so that's where we're going with. We're sticking with our D&D stuff here. So the red dragons, they look like you said, like the four legged, the two wings, and then they have horns that end up going straight back. I'm gonna go ahead and read a little bit of what the monster manual says the red dragons are.
Let's get it.
This is gonna be a little, just a short paragraph or two, and then we can start another fun discussion.
We'll turn the page into the manual.
Yes. So red dragons are the most covetous of the true dragons. Red dragons tirelessly seek to increase their treasure hoards. They are exceptionally vain, even for dragons, and their conceit is reflected in their proud bearing and their disdain for other creatures. The odor of sulfur and pumice surrounds the red dragons. Those swept back horns and spinal frills define its silhouette. Its beaked snout vents smoke at all times, and its eyes dance with flames when it is angry. Its wings are the longest of any chromatic dragons, and they have a blue-black tint along the trailing edge that resembles metal burned blue by fire.
Ooh.
I like the description of their eyes because it says the oldest red dragons' eyes resemble molten lava orbs.
Oh,
I think
cool.
that's so cool, right?
Yeah. That sounds like anybody I've met from Wales, honestly.
Just fire in their eyes.
Dude, yeah. They're
Yeah, so
passionate people.
yeah, that's just a brief kind of overview of what the dragons that we're going to be looking at. Kind of the highlights here. They are extremely vain, and they do have some smoke that vents out of their nostril at all times. We're going.
Yeah,
red
we're
with
changing
it.
the lighting here in the studio. Getting fiery in here.
So that's the sources that we're going to be pulling from today are mainly from the Monster Manual, and then also from Mr. Rex's YouTube videos. He has a whole series on dragons that goes a little bit more in depth on some aspects. His videos are typically like what our current Monster Manual doesn't say about dragons. Going back into older editions and kind of bringing that lore and mythology to the front, which is very interesting because D&D is now 5 editions in, and it continues to create more and more history and mythology. So it's very interesting to go back and see that stuff.
Dude, as somebody who's just now beginning their journey in researching dragons, now that we do these dragon episodes every other week,
Yeah, for real.
I really admire people who are able to string together the through line and are able to sort of tell you this is the timeline of our current mythology. I think it's so cool. So thank you, Mr. X, over there on YouTube.
Yes.
Appreciate you.
All right, heading back to dragons. The red dragons are known as the strongest of all the dragons, and they know it and they flaunt it. Believe the only dragons that would actually be a challenge for red dragons are going to be gold dragons. Red dragons live in high mountains or volcanoes or deep abandoned strongholds. The more geothermal activity, the better. I think that's such a cool visual that you could have where there's geothermal activity. Part of this, I have a player in a new campaign that I'm running has in the forest and in her home area that she's from. She said they're druids, but they don't use fire. They use and have geothermal vents underneath the forest that gives them the heat. And I was like, that's just such a cool and interesting world building, note that I probably wouldn't have thought of. But then as I'm reading this, it's like, oh, but these red dragons like that. So maybe there's a red dragon there in the forest somewhere or underneath that loves this geothermal heat. And that forest comes up to a mountain, and so what if there is like a dormant red dragon there in this part of the world? As we were doing research,
That's
I'm
so
like,
cool.
ooh, this is gonna
Yeah.
be fun. This is gonna be fun. I can't wait for it.
It's almost like its own deity.
Yeah.
That's so cool. It makes me think of earthbending.
Oh,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? It's just pulling something up from the earth.
Uh-huh.
And if it's just that steam waiting there, ooh,
All red dragons
Bernie.
have a constant small stream of fire that juts out of their nostril, especially when they are angry. And red dragons are always angry. Yeah. So,
Yes,
doing. Oh, let me finish this, and then we can continue.
I'm terrified. Continue.
Typically there is a hot air mirage around the dragon when you're looking at it because
Oh,
that's how
cool.
much heat is exuding. I was like, oh, that's so wild. I mean, we live here in Texas, so we're very used to that mirage. But
Yes.
imagine it coming off of a creature and it like has those like little waves around it. Oh, that's crazy. And in the video, it's like this is how you can tell that you're facing a red dragon. If like you're in a dark area, it's you can see the mirage, and when a red dragon attacks, there's no talking to it, right? It's going to pounce. I know in our black dragon episode, we talked about how the black dragon would try and gain information and try and torture people psychologically. This red dragon is like, no, we're not even gonna bother with it. We're going straight to violence as quick as we can.
Wow.
Yeah. So red dragons, these dragons are going to be more of what we typically think of when we're talking about fantasy dragons. They meet a lot of those key characteristics. So they're the ones that are tirelessly seeking out to increase their treasure hoards. That is their one of their main objectives is having a huge, enormous hoard of treasure. And it's not necessarily how big it is or how valuable it is, but what they want is to increase their reputation by their treasure hoard being so valuable.
It's so interesting. I feel like, unlike some of the other dragons we gone over, I guess we've only done black dragons officially,
Yeah.
but these are all the dragon tropes right now.
Yeah.
Like this is the dragon.
Oh, absolutely.
Is this where D&D started? Is this like the first dragon they introduced, or did they come out with like all the colors?
No, I believe
You know?
I believe there was it might actually be. I don't know 100% on that. But I do know there was the gold dragon first, and there might have been the red dragon, but then they had to no, the all the dragons, sorry, all the chromatic dragons were a part of D&D 1.
Because of
first edition.
Tiamat, right?
Yeah, because of Tiamat.
Yeah, okay,
And
okay,
then the
okay.
gold dragon was just the gold dragon. There was the chromatic, and then there was the gold dragon, and then the gold dragon or the metallic dragons ended up coming out of that. I hope I'm not getting those terms mixed up, but I believe that is what the case is.
This feels like a BC kind of, story where it's the gold dragon begat the red dragon begat the, It's starting to get there, people.
Yeah.
This is me drawing things together. Look at that.
Hey, there we go.
Adorable.
So these dragons, they like mountain terrains, right? We said it a little bit earlier, volcanoes, geothermal activity. What they really enjoy the most is being able to go up on a perch and be able to look out and see their domain and see their territory. They want that visual. So they want that visual so bad. It's not necessarily they are hot creatures, but that doesn't mean that they only stick to volcanoes. If they are in a volcano and it is not the highest peak, they won't put their lair in that volcano. They want to be on the top. Even to the point where they will sacrifice their own physical comfort to still have that view. So they don't like cold or snow-topped mountains.
They need them.
But they need them. They don't want them, but they need them because it has the highest peak. Especially if like the area or the world that you're around doesn't have a lot of high peaks, which again is interesting because without even doing it, there's this dynamic of a perfect place for a red dragon. So if my players are listening, maybe.
I think it was The Fork, the Witch, and the Worm, the Christopher Paolini like bridge book between the Inheritance trilogy, but even though it's 4 books, and then the Murtagh book.
Mhm.
There is a dragon that basically it's a black dragon, but it sits on top of this mountaintop like this, where it's not comfortable. It's not loving life or anything. It just comes down to eat, and it really doesn't do anything else other than look around.
Yeah.
Super interesting. Anyway, whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
That's
for
cool.
sure.
Christopher Paolini again. I had to mention him.
Oh yeah, of course we can't
Well,
go a dragon episode without
Can't
mentioning
go
Aragon.
one episode. Yeah.
So the red dragons view themselves as kings of all other, or they view themselves as kings They want to be in this high position. They view every other creature as lowly creatures, inferior creatures. They also view all other dragon kind as inferior as well. So they believe that the so in our dragon episode we talked about some of the deities. We talk about Asgaroth being one of the dragon deities. They believe Asgaroth is a red dragon, and they believe that all red dragons are descendants, are part of Asgaroth, and that all dragons were a part of Asgaroth. But the other colored dragons are impure now because they have strayed away from what it means to be a red dragon, and so they have started to become impure and lose their red coloring and have changed into other colors, so they view them as inferior.
Question.
Yeah.
Um, did any of your research go into the mating rituals of these things?
Yes.
Because it sounds like, from the way it's splayed out here, it sounds like there wouldn't be a ton of them around.
Right. You would think that, but in the research, it sounds like there's still a lot. It sounds like it's more than like black dragons. I felt like when I was doing research for that, there wasn't a whole lot of other black dragons in the area. Here, it sounds like red dragons are actually going to be a little bit more common than you would expect. But there is a reason for it because sometimes they go dormant, which is interesting, or they hibernate for a little bit of time. So the mating ritual, so they see all other dragon kind as inferior.
Weird, like a volcano, right? Like they're just gonna go dormant for a while and just chill there before they
Yeah,
pop. Yeah.
exactly.
Oh, cool.
So
Cool.
for as far as their mating rituals, they view everything as inferior. But there's not so much as a hate towards the inferior creatures because they're inferior. Why waste that energy hating something that is less than you? What they hate the most are other red dragons. So, which interesting, right? So it sounds like
Yeah.
mating would be really, really tough. So what typically happens here? Red dragons are all about the reputation. So red dragons also have a reputation for going berserk and raging out. And when that happens, there are a couple things that would bring that to happen. One of the chief things is hearing that another dragon has increased their reputation over themselves. So at that
Nice.
point, they're going to go into a rage. And we can get into what that means here in a little bit. But so they value the reputation of other red
Status
dragons.
is crazy important with these things.
Absolutely. So when it comes to mating, status is also very important. So typically a younger female dragon will approach an older very high up status adult or higher red dragon male and will ask for their seed essentially.
Man, this red dragons are starting to sound like Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah. Yeah. If you know, you know.
Yeah, if you know, you know.
Yeah, so they have that vibe, and then after they get the seed from the older male dragon, the male dragon will leave the female mother to go to term and bring the eggs out, and then the mother will very quickly abandon the eggs or the hatchlings whenever they hatch so that they can fend for themselves. So even to the point, like, red dragons hate other red dragons so much, even parents, the mother will not be willing to sacrifice itself to defend the eggs. So if it is in a situation where it knows it's going to die or going to lose this fight because of the hatchlings, it will leave the hatchlings and try and survive and
Wow.
try and do a new batch of kids later. Maybe because now if it loses its fight, its reputation has been hurt even more. Um,
And the younglings, if you help them out too much, right? They lose their reputation right at the start. So,
exactly. So red dragon, young wormlings or young dragons. There's this weird dynamic in dragon culture where the older dragons who are not able to have eggs anymore will uh give advice to younger dragons. So like a blue dragon could potentially go up to maybe an older green dragon that is just this older ancient dragon, and the ancient dragon will give advice on how to be a dragon, how to be effective. A red dragon will not go and seek any advice. A young red dragon, because if it goes to seek advice from another dragon, it is being viewed as weak to have to go and seek advice from someone else, which hurts its reputation.
Would an older red dragon provide advice to another dragon?
They would, but if they were to give the advice, the one that got its advice given to the one that's asking for the advice would lose reputation.
So even though they know that as like older red dragons, they're just like, I'm chilling. I'm gonna give you advice anyway.
I mean, it's almost to the point where it wouldn't happen.
Gotcha.
Because of how
I'm really
much
digging into this
hurt,
for no reason.
It would hurt no, but I mean that's part of the dragon lore and some of the stuff that we the video talked about. Their reputation deals so much, and they're so prideful in that they will not take certain actions because of that.
Interesting.
So like if red dragons, once they're in their lair, are very similar to beholders in one sense, where they're always calculating and always trying to come up with different strategies for what's going to happen next. So the examples that were used, like if a group of mages, the dragon's going to be in its lair, and it's like if a group of mages just teleport in here, what's going to happen? What are my plans? So it's going to create an A, B, and C strategy for what happens then. And then what if a group of red dragons are trying to take over my status and they're going to try and take over my horde? Okay, I'm going to start putting a plan in action here. What if adventurers come and start attacking me here? I'm going to put in another set of actions.
Like they start getting kind of manic.
They do, but it's not so much manic in the fact like a beholder is a madman. Like a beholder is going crazy. A dragon is just trying to be tactically smart here in that case, and is just coming up with all the contingency plans. So if this doesn't work, then I'm going to go to this. Because when they do fight, they fight very much with their emotions, that they don't want to think during the fight. They want to be able to have already had a game plan, and then they will stick to that game plan moving forward into the fight. And they won't deviate from their game plan unless the conditions change, in which case the plan would have already changed. Like if this happens, then I'm going to do this. If this happens, I'm going to do this. And so it's going down that contingency.
Cool.
When they're not raging.
When they're not raging,
When they're
yes.
not raging, yes.
It's harder to make a plan and stick to it when you're raging.
Which we're not necessarily going in the order of what I have stuff.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No.
I'm just enthused
because it is answering the questions, right? So because it doesn't think about it, it doesn't strategize as well when it's raging. That is the best time to strike a red dragon, and adventurers know this. When it's raging, that is when you strike, because it is going to leave itself open and vulnerable, typically because it's in a rage. What pushes a red dragon to go into a rage is a couple of things. One, again, the reputation of other dragons going higher than its own reputation. Two, if someone steals from their horde is going to be the other big thing. Or someone, I want to say someone insults them. Another red dragon will insult them.
Emotional damage.
Exactly. Yeah. I didn't write the
What's
other
that
things
bard
down.
spell where they just talk
Vicious
mad
mockery.
shit? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where this comes into play. Comes in handy.
Yeah. So it
I just watched the movie Damsel last night, and spoiler alert, she is like getting away from this dragon. It's a black dragon, but basically the only way she's able to fight it, because she's just one person, is that she gets it into a rage, gets it really mad. And I thought, like, what a stupid plan when I was watching it. And then it was like, oh, it started making bad decisions. Okay.
Yeah. So one of the
Makes
things
sense.
that happens when a dragon's reputation goes above another dragon's reputation, let's say,
Fight.
well, no.
Oh, no.
What'll happen is you hear, okay, this red dragon A went on a rampage, did something epic, it burned a city down, its reputation increased. Okay, well, the other red dragon hears about this. Well, I need to do something that's better than that. right? So I'm going to burn down 3 villages.
That's such a fun story element. Oh my
so
gosh.
then you have multiple dragons. If you have, let's say, 7 or 8 dragons in the area, they're now starting. Okay, once they hear wind of, oh, well, they do. Well, now I'm going to go and do this. Now I'm going to go and do this. So that's when they know it's time to. That's the best time to start killing those dragons, because they're not thinking as much, because they're going into a rage, because their reputation is hurt, and now they're having to go out and prove themselves and trying to earn their reputation a little bit more. But you're right, it is a great story point, because, dude, could you imagine, like,
The final human stronghold looking out over this entire burning wasteland. Yeah.
and then there's like these 3 dragons or 4 dragons that are like circling it. It's like they're trying to see who's going to be first. They're trying to see who's going to do the most amount of damage. They're not working together. They're working solo, trying to do the most that they can do.
Yeah.
Very,
Oh,
very
man, yeah.
interesting.
So here's another curiosity question.
Yeah,
Where do they get their information from?
sweet. So
They're
they
just sitting in their cave, ruminating.
they, like many other dragons, will have servants, slaves, and they will have those slaves go out and get information for them.
Send out the slaves.
Yeah, yeah. So
I need my gossip.
yeah, exactly. So they will get like a town or a village, and they will, or a city or whatever, and they will have them enslaved by fear and threat of getting burned down, right? And they will then use those people to go and get information out. So they spend about 50-50 time in their lair, and then 50% of the time out and about.
Doing
Obviously-
social calls.
yeah,
Yeah.
and making sure their people are in line and keeping their reputation up and trying to stay epic, you know?
Yeah. Pride and Prejudice, but for red dragons.
Yeah. Yeah,
Lava
absolutely.
tea. All right, cool. As you were. Sorry.
Sweet. So we're gonna go through some of these things, because, you know, lair, they spend time doing their tactics. Okay, so one of the cool things is that they don't want to think when it comes to combat, but they are very smart. Yeah.
What? What?
Okay.
I'm highlighting something. Sorry.
So they will we'll go ahead and go to that
Now,
right now.
I'm not only jumping ahead of him with my words, I'm jumping ahead of him on the document and highlighting things.
Yeah.
I'm being irritating.
So no, not at all. So the dragons will, after they've accomplished their goals, right? We mentioned that they will go into some type of hibernation. They can go up to 10 years hibernating after
That's
they reach their goal.
crazy.
And guess what?
Like, I fucking did it. I'm taking a nap.
Right? Okay, I got this kingdom to obey me. I'm taking a nap, right? They get up from their nap and the kingdom has been destroyed, or the kingdom is, you know, a different set of kings. Maybe another dragon has taken claim over it. It goes into a
Ooh.
rage, right? So now they're upset, and now you got 2 dragons going into a rage again, or whatever reason. So typically whenever they get up, they're going into a rage because the landscape has changed for whatever reason.
Pre-coffee dragons.
3 coffee dragons.
Pre-coffee.
Oh,
yeah. Wake up
exactly.
in a rage. Are you kidding me?
For
yes.
sure.
Dude,
Um,
same.
So ironically enough, these red dragons hibernate the second longest out of all the dragons. Green
Who's the first?
dragons are the longest, with hibernating up to 30 years.
What?
Yeah,
Dude.
which is crazy to me. It's crazy. But the way that green dragons do their manipulation and enslavement is a little bit different. They will,
We'll get to that on another podcast.
yeah, we'll get to-
Whoa.
yeah, exactly.
Whoa. This is red dragon time.
and if we
Close
forget
one.
about it, sorry.
Yes. Stay on task.
Yeah, so they can hibernate up to 10 years, which is wild. I didn't think, you know, I kind of knew that dragons could do that, and like they slumber and things like that, but yeah, actually knowing that 10 years, that's a long time. You could go a whole campaign without seeing a red dragon, and that can be like the end game, the end boss. It's just like this red dragon comes out, and the landscape, the things that your players have done has been completely different, and it has changed the power structure, and it comes out and it's pissed.
Like the entire valley that they've spent the entire campaign capturing and taming
Yeah.
is now opening up with steam vents. And the earth
man.
is shaking, and they see a billowing fire in the distance.
Yeah, absolutely.
So cool.
A little bit about how dragons fight. So these dragons are very large, right? It's interesting that the lore says this, because it also in the lore said they have the largest wing, or the longest wings, but they prefer to fight on the ground versus the air, which I thought
That was
interesting.
confusing. Yeah.
I don't necessarily understand that. The way that it made it seem like is they're more like bobcats almost. Like they're very strong, they're very agile on the ground, but when it comes to their flight, they are bulky, so maneuvering in the air is a little bit harder for them. It's an interesting tidbit. You know, you got to have some type of weakness, I guess. So maybe that's the weakness, getting it up into the air, or the vulnerability. It's just not as agile, or maybe it's easier to hit once it goes into the air. I think if we're gonna like homebrew that weakness, I would absolutely like decrease the AC when it's up in the air, and then when it comes down on the ground, increase the AC and increase the attack bonus that it had. Maybe.
Yeah, definitely like more fire spells when it's on the ground too.
Yeah,
Right? Like
yeah.
maybe you can get off one, maybe two, and the actual stats on whether it's gonna hit or spray wide is like way harder to hit the right number for it
Mhm.
or something.
Yeah. Funny enough that you say.
Sloppy.
Funny enough, you say the amount of like spells or stuff. Dragons will These red dragons will try their best to not use their fire breath weapon, because
Really?
they don't want any loot on the people to get burned, because they are very curious about the treasures
That's
that are
so
on
funny.
people. And you think of an average Dungeons and Dragons party, or any type of RPG party that's a higher level facing red dragons, they got some shit on them. You know, they got
Yeah.
some valuable stuff on them. So it wants those valuables, and it is so greedy. It will try its best to not use it. So if a red dragon, you know, if played by, if you listen to this and you start playing your red dragons this way, and you see your DM, or whoever start using the dragon fire breath, you're like, oh, it does not care now, you
Yeah.
know, or it's not using it. It's like, oh man, it thinks it can take us on without using the fire breath. That's scary. I
Is
think
it
that
in a
would be.
bloodied condition or is it just that like, beefy?
Yeah, could you imagine going through a dragon fight and like, when's it going to use its fire breath? Like you're just tentative the whole time, and you're not like actually using your strategy to get in front of it at all. You're just constantly like not staying together. You're not using maybe some buff spells. You're not in range with your players, because if you're close enough, you might get hit with this fire breath, but it just doesn't use it. Oh, I think it would be such a tense situation.
Dude, it's the fun thing about those combats to me is that you can totally get chased off from your team because
Yeah.
dragons are so big.
Mhm.
It's like if they wanted to single you out, then it's like physically they can just sort of push you away from
Exactly. Yeah.
everybody. And yeah, that's pretty cool.
um Going back to their reputation, and in their combat, they are very smart about stuff. And so like I said, gold dragons are probably the only type of dragons that they won't push a fight, because gold dragons sometimes will be stronger than them, sometimes will beat the red dragon in in a fight. So they will try and talk themselves out and find a way that's a reasonable way to not fight a gold dragon. If they feel like there is a fight that they cannot win, they will try to avoid the fight, because avoiding the fight is better than losing the fight. If you avoid the fight, nothing happens to your reputation. But if you lose the fight, your reputation goes down. So they are very conscious about how the fight is going to go.
Nice.
Um, then we went over
It's starting to
slaves.
remind me of high school sports out here.
Oh man.
Who did you lose to? Yep, they're never playing another match.
If someone steals from the horde of a red dragon, so a red dragon, they love their horde, they love their treasures so much. One of the special abilities of a dragon is they can look at an object and they just know how much it is, which I thought was like, that's such an arbitrary thing,
Antiques
you know?
Roadshow.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
you know, oh, that's exactly 600 gold pieces, or 632 gold pieces. Like I know the exact worth of
Red
all
Dragon
this.
takes out its glasses.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Um
From the 10th dynasty.
yeah, exactly. But then when it gets its stuff into its hoard, it knows the value of everything in its hoard, and it knows exactly where everything is at. So if something is misplaced, moved, the dragon will go into a rage. If someone has stolen from its hoard and it finds out where that person has traveled to, it will go to those places. And even if that person isn't there anymore, it will burn down the people or the village that housed and fed the thieves, or the people that stole their loot. So it goes full rage mode, but it's strategic rage mode.
I feel like this is the only dragon that actually it's horde. It's actually like a hoarder. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, hoarders get real mad if you mess with their stuff,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
whatever it is, in any way.
That is definitely the vibe
Why
that
is
is
this
here.
sideways?
Yeah, then we
Ooh.
talked about dragon raging already. Like I said, if one of this quote I really liked from them, because they view, like I said, they won't they won't fire breath adventurers because they want their loot. Their belief is if you can't defend your belongings, you don't deserve them. Which is why they will, if in that rage mode where all the other dragons are fighting, if there is a dragon that is hurt, it will go and try and kill the hurt dragon if it thinks it has an opportunity to kill it and gain its horde. Because then you didn't deserve the horde if you couldn't defend it. If you couldn't go on this rage and still defend your horde, you don't deserve it. You don't deserve to live. It's crazy.
Nice. Yeah. It's pretty intense.
It sure is. It sure is.
You want to do meals and
Yeah.
then jump into inspirations?
Yeah, for sure.
Let the people know where we're headed.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is kind of the last thing here on our D&D before we get into stats, and then we're going to be looking at Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, and we're going to roll up a little bit of a red dragon. Very, very cool thing that they added in that book to make it real easy for you to run a dragon and give its own unique personality.
Here we go, Fizbands.
But anyways, we're going to the meals before that. So you've heard of the stories, right? We talked about a sacrifice here a little bit earlier. The story of someone sacrificing a fair maiden to the dragon, right? This young
Virgin princess.
yes, young virgin princess, right? So according to D&D mythology, that is something that happens because, long story short, dragons like young meat because they say that it is the best and most delicious
Try
meat.
the veal, yeah.
And it is they prefer humans and elves. So a young, and they say that females taste better than males. So a young female would be the sacrifice for the dragons. That would be its ideal meal almost, which is
And it's like the
interesting.
only valuable thing that humans have other than stuff they would just take anyway.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Then as far as
Power play.
yeah. And then as far as what red dragons taste like, they say if you do kill a red dragon and you decide to eat its flesh,
Yum.
it is so spicy that even a bite
Heck
of it, even a bite of the spice will cause like extreme like indigestion, heartburn, and it needs to be aged and seasoned correctly for quite a while before it can even be eaten, which I think is a cool like world building element too. It's like, we don't touch the dragon meat. We still need to wait another like 2 years until it's actually ready to be eaten, because if you eat it now, you might die.
That's one thing I almost never world build either, is when I make a BBEG, I don't come up with what it tastes like.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? I just never really got there. That's an interesting note.
Yeah, I started doing that once Molly's character started harvesting stuff and it has that ability to do that. I was like, oh, what do they taste like? What are some things that you can harvest from this? All right. It's kind of a trope to like, you kill the big bad and you want to eat it, like it is still food. And a lot of times these dragons are so large that it can quite easily sustain a large group of people.
Yeah, like native tribes in northern Alaska, they'll hunt one whale a year,
Mhm.
and the whale feeds their entire tribe.
Yeah.
I think it's for the whole winter, right? And their relatives, I'm sure,
Yeah.
elsewhere. But they also leave what's left of the carcass out on an island, and it's like something between 40 and 60 polar bears come and eat what's left of it.
Dang.
So I mean, this thing feeds a plethora, so many people and animals, and then you figure a dragon canonically is so much bigger than that.
Exactly.
So it's got to be
exactly, yeah.
like, yeah, spicy dragon, ghost pepper dragon, a little bit
yeah.
salted.
Well,
Roll that right up.
that's all I have for the D&D portion of it. And of course, like I said, we're going to go into the stats and some Fizban here in just a little bit. But yeah, let's go ahead and hit some of those inspirations, unless you had something to talk about beforehand.
Yeah, well, just right before I jump into inspirations, I haven't done the the country race in a while, just for our longtime listeners.
Yeah.
Whichever country has the highest percentage of listeners, I've sort of shouted out. Whichever is highest after America, because this is housed here.
Yeah.
It is English language, so obviously the most of our listeners are here. But after America, Germany is locking it in at 5%.
Oh, dang, that's what's up.
Yeah, Sweden's next at 2% of our listenership. So I mean, everybody else is down from that. But 5% of the listenership in Germany. What's up, Germany?
Hey, what's up, Germany?
What's up, Germany?
I saw Cameroon was number 4 still.
Yeah, Cameroon's still
Hey,
hanging
man.
in there strong, dude.
Shout out to Cameroon, man. They've been listeners here for whoever's listening in Cameroon. Hey, shout out to you, man. You've been listening for such a long time. I remember when you were doing this solo, you were shouting out Cameroon. So that they have been
Dude,
long time listeners. Hey,
since it
if you're from
started,
Cameroon,
4 years.
Can you please reach out to us? That would be so dope to be like, hey, it's the dude from Cameroon.
We'd have you on, dude.
Heck yeah.
Send in audio, send in anything. Just send us a message. Yeah, we would have you on 100%. Do it. So that's inspiring, but also
for sure.
But also, my wife and I just went to the Sherwood Forest Ren Fair in Central Texas, which was dank. It's super fun. Getting to see everybody's costumes and stuff is always wild, and it's just amazing to see so much creativity in one place.
Yeah.
But I got to be honest, I'm a bit of a bird nerd, and I don't really know a lot of facts about birds. But I just anytime there is a bird around, I think that's like my favorite thing, especially big birds.
Yeah.
And there was the Sky Kings Falconry did, I think it was Kevin Gaines is the guy running it, and he did a presentation with an owl. And as soon as this owl came out, they had its own cage, and the door sort of raises, and out runs this owl, and then it just like takes off flying and lands on the perch on stage, and everybody gasped at the same time, and it was just the coolest thing. Because
so cool.
I mean, we go to the zoo, we go to all kinds of stuff, but when we don't expect to see an animal, some natural event, it can be really awe-inspiring when it just happens like that. And I just thought that was such a cool moment that, we've probably all seen that on, Planet Earth or whatever nature documentary we've seen. We've probably all seen owls and that's particular kind. But seeing it in person and seeing it fly, I mean, like it flew past me maybe like 4 feet from my face. That was part of the show. It was like flying perch to perch, and it was so neat. And it was terrifying too. I was like, this thing is probably like 5 or 6 pounds, and it would definitely do some damage to me first. But I think I'd live.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But
I don't know. Fighting wild creatures is always like, I think I could do it, and you're like,
yeah.
These things got talents, man. And they're silent. You're not going to hear them coming.
Dude, they're absolutely silent. It flew past not a single sound, which is so eerie too. And it just made me think immediately of dragons, because we've been doing a lot of dragon episodes for one, but also just like a totally awe-inspiring natural event once it shows up in front of you. That it's like everybody just that gasp followed by that hush. I mean, it's like, oh, that's such a powerful moment. So that was really cool, and I wanted to make sure I mentioned it on the show.
Yeah. I love seeing things in nature, and then being able to not repurpose it, but like just bring that experience into a storytelling element, whether it's in our writing or in our podcast or in the D&D games that we play. It's really fun. Really
That's
fun.
the whole thing, the whole kit and caboodle, right? If you can get people to feel something, man, yeah, it's the greatest thing in the world, honestly.
Yeah, for sure.
What's inspiring you, Mr.
Man.
Michael Sir?
Yeah, so I've been getting inspired recently by an FX show called Shogun.
Oh, no way. Yeah.
Dude, it is so good. Have you
The
seen
armor
it?
on the the last time I watched it, I didn't even have the volume up. I was just watching the armor.
Dude.
And I was like, I'll go back and I'll watch it for
It
what
has
it's for.
It has been really, and it captivated me like right away. Not only, so I saw ads for it, and I was like, man, that looks like a cool show, but I don't have Hulu, but I didn't realize, I guess I do have Hulu through Disney Plus, I guess. So, oops. But
Cross streaming.
I was so excited. Yeah, absolutely. I was so excited when I saw that I had access to it, because I was very rarely do I see ads for a show. I'm like, huh, that looks interesting. This I was like, man, that I really like to watch it. And FX has some really good shows. I feel like they've done a good job over the course of, there got to be some duds too, but over the course of the last, I want to say even decade. Because wait, when did Into the Badlands come out? That was an FX
Oh,
show
that was
too.
so good. Yeah.
Um,
Probably at least 7 years ago. I don't know. Let me
yeah,
look.
yeah. So they've had a really good string of shows. And when you can tell like there are some shows like the Halo show, right? You can tell like executives are into it. Like there's definitely like almost an agenda with the storyline that's
Nine
not
years ago.
nine. So yeah, like I said,
Yeah.
so almost a decade,
Hell
right?
yeah.
So sometimes there's like an agenda that's trying to be pushed one way or another. Like they're trying to tell some type of story. But I felt like for this, it kept it historically, it's television, right? It's entertainment, so it's probably not 100% historically accurate. But when I was watching it, I was like, man, this is what I wanted to watch when I was a kid. Like this would be like the show that I watch on repeat because it's got the samurai, it's got a little bit of the political intrigue, it's got I mean, the whole first third episode I think is all politics, and it starts off with politics, and it's so interesting um to see the dynamic and to see world building element that has basis in history, because when you're world building you have to look at history to see how things are going to be running. Also, I'm running a game, the Daggerheart game. It has aspects of the Japanese culture. It has aspects of the samurai, and so it was really inspiring for me to also base stuff off of that show, and based off of that history, and seeing it's been so fun. It feels like you can tell that there's so much passion in these episodes. I'm enjoying it so much. It doesn't feel like they're holding back any punches at this point, where I feel like some shows you can kind of predict what's going to be happening. And this so far, I feel like there are a couple things that I'm going to predict that's going to happen, but so far, it's not necessarily hitting those predictions. I have no idea, and I'm very much encapsulated by what the show is doing and saying. So,
Shout out Carlos Rosario for costume design on this
yes.
show.
Oh my gosh.
It was it's a damn beautiful show.
It really
I mean,
is.
like I said, I didn't even watch it the first time I watched it. I didn't even watch it with audio because I was like, this is just pretty.
Yeah, it was so.
I know that makes me
Different.
like super nerdy, but I did it.
No, yeah, absolutely. It was awesome. It was absolutely awesome.
Thank
But
you
yeah.
for sharing.
Yeah. So that's been our inspirations. We're heading back to dragons.
When and why do you use red dragons in your story?
Yeah. So now
No, just tell me.
now
Just Michael, just tell me. Just
Right.
tell me why you use
I'm telling you
dragons.
right now. No. So obviously after doing the research of this, when I would use it, oh dude, there's really so many different ways and times to use it. So you could use it as like a beginning part of the campaign, right? You can use it. I like that image of also at the end of the campaign. I really liked that image that you put out there of like, the land that has just been you know gotten rid of the goblins or the orcs or whatever, but that community was loyal to the red dragon, but the red dragon's been hibernating. And then you said like, these smoke plumes starting to come up, the volcano starts to become active, and it's like, oh man, you just finished this tough, almost Tartarus like fight in our game, and then it's like, oh, now you have this upset ancient red dragon coming out, or just adult red dragon, and just making it so much more intimidating. I think would be a fun time to use it and see it go on a rampage, and even as low level characters see it go on a rampage and not be able to do anything about it. And it's a case of you need to run and hide and then figure out, okay, where is this dragon at, what are its goals, how can we try and either draw it out, how can we fight this thing, what is our quest here to do we run, do we come back here later and say, we can't save the people now, but maybe in a couple levels we'll be able to save them. Who knows?
Yeah, that's almost exactly what I was thinking too. But it's like I like the idea of an introduction that is, your band is rolling into town in a wagon, and it's sort of like everybody seems like they're on edge. Nobody's talking.
Mhm,
Like
mhm.
this is a silent city you're rolling into, And through talking to somebody who will actually talk to you, maybe somebody at the hotel, maybe somebody at the marketplace, whoever you find to talk to them the first time, they say it's been just over 10 years since the last dragon attack.
Mm-hmm.
So we know from their hibernation rituals, we know that it's only a matter of time now before they come out of their cave. Like they haven't been seen, and everybody remembers the last time they lost, half of their family when it came down.
What if too, like part of the lore of the dragon is that it knows where its treasure is at, and it views the people as a treasure. So if more people are there, it's like, who is disturbing my treasure?
What in the world? That'd be so good. That'd be so good.
I knew how many people were here. I need accounts of this person. Where are they at? They died. Prove it to me. Okay. And then it's like, where's this person at? They're traveling. They're on their way back. Prove it to me. I need proof now, or else people are gonna start dropping. Where's the new loot? And it's like, okay, these are the children that were born in the last 10 years. Who are these people? And they point to your party of adventurers. You're like, oh, we're not your treasure. It's like,
you are now.
yeah, exactly. You are considered my treasure now, and if you leave now, I will seek and destroy this village, and I will then seek you out. Oh.
And like the only people that the dragon kills are like the doctors, like they have like the elderly people, and it's like overseeing, just like standing there watching a doctor try to keep somebody alive, and like in their final moments, and then they just drift off, and it's like crazy eyes, light them on fire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, dude.
Go wild with it.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's awesome.
Dude, that's dope. That's super dope.
Just think of that song, King of the Castle.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the intro song for our new TV show called Red Dragon.
Yeah. Dude, that would be so cool.
Vortigern's Red Dragon.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So we're at an hour, and I wanted to go through and use the Fizban's treasury of dragons to roll up a dragon, but instead what I'm going to do is just talk through what it gives you, and kind of, not that we get anything from you buying it, but if you're interested in looking at it, this is some of the details that it gets for each of the dragons. So it gives you some tables to roll, and the first one it gives you is a red dragon personality trait. One of them I really liked.
Just give one so we don't get copyright infringement.
I'm not gonna read all of them,
even though we love them and you should buy it.
Pick a number between 1 and 8, and I'll read it.
7.
Although my power and lifespan are vast, they have merely whetted my appetite for immortality. Ooh. Good. Red dragon ideals. Pick a number between 1 and 6.
2.
Might. Only the strongest survive and prosper, so I must be the strongest of all.
Ooh.
And then it has red dragon spell casting. So we talked about some spells. So based on how old the dragon is, and I'll get into that in just a second, it has certain spells. So young, it has 4 spells. Adult has a couple more spells, and ancient has even more spells, with certain DCs set at each one of those ages.
Does it have like adventure hooks and stuff like that? Just something to kick off it new
literally the next table is red dragon adventure hooks. Yeah,
I've never even owned this.
Yeah,
I need to buy it.
Yeah, it's I have a copy, but it's packed.
Dang it.
Go ahead and
3.
pick a number between 1 and 3. A red dragon is the cause of a raging wildfire, making the hunt for the dragon even more dangerous. Oh, so cool. One of the things that I forgot to write down that I read is the dragons. So they they have an ever-present continuous flame in their nostril. So they have plumes of smoke coming out. So on top of the kind of heat, wavering, what do we call it?
Mirage.
Thank you. On top of the heat mirage, they can blow out smoke, and then they'll have smoke around their body, making them harder to hit.
Wow.
So like that version of the black dragon, right, was like those gnats and kind of the nastiness. This is just straight up smoke that is obscuring them and making them harder to hit.
This just makes me think of like this group of dragon hunters that all have like not flying equipment but sort of like gliding down, and they're like, they see a red dragon on the ground because they like being on the ground, and then they like cliff dive in, and the dragon sees them, lights the forest that they're diving into on fire, and just books it out of there.
Oh, that's so cool. That's such a cool dynamic.
Dude.
It's almost like like
Welcome to the
dragon
jungle.
dragon hunters / airbenders, like using those gliders or whatever.
Hell
That's
yeah.
cool. The next table is connected creatures. All right, so pick a number between 1 and 6.
Connected creatures. Give me a 6.
Okay, so they actually have a table for wormlings, young red dragons, adult red dragons, and ancient red dragons.
Let's go ancient for 3.
Ancient for 3. So the table went from a 1d6, 1d6, and then the adult was a 1d8, and then the ancient red dragon is a 1d4. And you said 3?
3.
A cult in service to an ancient red dragon is gathering resources to summon a consort of Tiamat. So the cult's master can defeat the consort in single combat and claim a place at Tiamat's side.
Ooh.
Interesting.
Dang, Fizzbands.
Yep, they have. They talk about the red dragon layers, and so we kind of talked about that already. The example they use is this kind of volcano really high up into the sky. One thing that I really enjoyed about this, because I'm looking at the map here, and I'm gonna show Henry the map. Can you see like where the entrance is in this map?
No.
Right.
Oh,
So-
from the top. It's a volcano.
It's a volcano.
What?
So the only way to get into the dragon's lair is having to go over the volcano and then climb
Summit the peak.
down the
Ooh.
volcano. And it's these sharp, it's going straight down. So you have to then go down and not fall into lava
Yeah.
or fall like,
Hot as
100,
balls in there.
200 feet. Yeah, exactly. So then you have all these other, difficulties just trying to get down to the lair. I
Dude,
thought that was so
Time
cool.
to write another short story. What is up
I
with these
know,
red
man.
dragons, dude? Inspiration Central.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
welcome, world.
Okay, so the lair action is that noxious smoke. There it is. And
There it
then
is.
you would be poisoned if you're caught in that cloud. And then searing heat. Searing heat spreads out in a 15-foot radius. Centered on the point of the dragon can see within 120 feet of it. Any creature that enters the affected area starts a turn, needs to make a DC 15, and then take 3d6 fire damage on a fail or half as much on a successful one. I liked what we talked about last time with the black dragon, where maybe we decrease the amount of damage, but there is no save. You just take damage.
Yeah.
I really like that kind of dynamic, and I think it one reduces like a ton of rolls at the table, and it just like, okay, y'all are all taking this damage. Okay, you're all taking this damage. Like the fight, there needs to be a push to try and get this fight over with as soon as possible.
Yeah, for sure.
Regional effects.
Ooh, this is where the good stuff was for the black dragons.
Yeah. Desertification? Precipitation is almost non-existent within 6 miles of the dragon's lair, making the land parched and arid and most plant life withered and brown.
Ooh, interesting.
Interesting. Yeah, I like it. Fiery scents. The dragon can hear up to 30 feet through any open flame within 1 mile of the dragon's lair.
What?
That is so cool. Could you imagine? So your party is outside of the volcano and they're
That's OP
lighting a
as
fire
fuck.
and it can hear the game plan going in. Oh, that's cool.
Or our mercenaries that dove into the forest, like it just hears exactly where they are.
Yeah.
And it's just
oh
like flying
my,
around overhead every now and again. Ooh.
That is so cool. Ominous flame. Open flames within 6 miles of the dragon's lair are tinged dark red, hiss and crackle constantly, and throw off embers and showers of sparks. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. It's just more crazy flame.
It's like ambiance more
Yeah.
than anything.
Yeah, but I feel open flames within 6 miles. So it's just there are flames around the lair, and so it can hear a lot of things going on around. So that's quite wild. It has another chart for dragon treasures. It's a 1d12. Let's go ahead and do this.
10.
10. A
Yes.
set of precious metal tablets containing ancient lore.
Nice.
Interesting.
I love lore
Yeah.
and myth
Yeah.
and D&D.
And deep diving.
Welcome to the Creative Thinker Podcast.
Yeah, right. So that's the table from Fizzman. So you can easily see we created a dragon here, right?
Yeah.
So that's how easy it was for us to do that.
Took 8 minutes or less.
Yeah, it took about 8 minutes, right? I think it was a little bit, because I said we're about an hour.
Yeah.
As far as the stat blocks,
like maybe we just
we'll go through one, right?
all right.
So the main part of the stat blocks
Love
that I
it.
really wanted to go through is the age, right? So this is how long the dragons can live. So a dragon wormling is 0 to 5 years old. A young dragon is 6 to 50 years old. adult red dragons are 50 to 800 years old.
What?
So that's the majority of the dragons that are probably going to be in this area, right?
Damn.
Also, adult red dragons are egg laying age. So
Up to 800 years?
up to 800.
How many eggs per clutch?
Dude.
What are we talking about? That's nuts.
That I don't know. But
that is nuts.
From just some of the pictures I saw like 2 or 3. So maybe, but still imagine 2 or 3 red dragons.
Even
over
every
the
2
course.
years.
Yeah.
I mean, even that's like 400
I didn't
clutches
get
times
that,
3. Yeah.
And then ancient red dragon is 800 to 1,000 years old, and then that is when egg laying usually ends. So at around 1,000 years old is when they stop laying eggs as an ancient red dragon. And then
Start going through dragon menopause.
yeah, and then there is the great worm, which is the level above the ancient ancient red dragon, and that is 1,000 years old to 4,400 years old.
Damn.
So as noted in the Dragonomicon, each dragon has a maximum age before a period of twilight when rapid deterioration occurs. It is said that whites die the earliest around 2,100 years old, and gold dragons live to be the longest around
4,400 years.
Yeah, years old.
Gold.
So that is quite a long time, and that twilight age, that is, the dragon has reached the end of its time and will just quickly deteriorate and die, which is very interesting. So you could do it like that, or do and play where dragons just live until they get killed.
What about in our village example where it's just about to hit that twilight time and it just dies outside the village when they think it's coming back, and then they see on the horizon like 6 new dragons that are just sort of eyeing it?
Oh, they're like,
Ooh.
who's gonna take the treasure next?
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
Absolute
that is crazy.
destruction.
Last thing, guys, thank you for sticking through it. I hope you guys are excited as I am on dragons. We're hitting adult red dragons. We're gonna go through their stat block, and then I don't think there's really much else to add. We'll see if there is, but I think the biggest thing that we talked about is that presence, being around it, kind of, you're gonna take some heat damage, and then when you use your breath weapon, you're trying to hold on to it until you do use it. But yeah,
Flavor Flav.
so
Yeah. Hit us up.
armor class, we're going 19 natural armor. Can you imagine a dragon with armor? 20,
Ooh.
especially like they like to stay on the ground.
Baller. Yeah.
So maybe you could armor your dragon up. I don't know. So I mean, maybe it's too prideful to take armor. Anyways, I'm thinking dragon riders and stuff like that, like Aragon.
Hey, from the hit author Christopher Paolini.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. In case you've never heard of him.
Hit points 256. That's 19d12 plus 133. They have a 40-foot normal speed, a climb foot of 40 foot, and a fly speed of 80 feet. So what's interesting here is they like to stay on the ground, and it's said that they like to pounce and are quicker on the ground. So I would actually probably increase that speed to maybe a 60-foot walking speed, and then the climb speed still probably I probably would increase it all. Like I would just make it a lot more. 40 feet is a lot, but that's almost as much as an adventurer can do. The fly speed is 80, but it doesn't like to fly. So the lore kind of contradicts these movements here. I would probably reduce the fly down to 60 and increase. Maybe everything is 60. Or maybe we do 80-foot walking speed.
Dude, that'd be nuts.
Woo-wee. All right, strength is
If
a
it
20.
grapples you once, you're so screwed.
Yeah, it grapples and sprints away.
Yeah, dude.
Oh man, and sprints. That's 160
Leaving
feet away.
smoke and fire in its wake. Ooh.
So cool. Strength is 27. That's a +8. Dex 10. Constitution is a 25 +7. Intelligence is a 16 +3. Wisdom 13 +1. Charisma 21 +5. I would probably increase the intelligence maybe. Aside from that, everything else seems all right. The dexterity seems to be on par with the lore. +0 on that. Saving throws, dex, con save throw, wisdom saving throw, charisma saving throws are their proficiencies. Has a perception +13, stealth +6. It's obviously immune to fire. It has blind sight of 60 feet, dark vision of 120 feet, passive perception of 23, and of course can hear anything within an open flame within a mile of it. Cool.
Yeah.
Challenge rating 17 for an adult red dragon, proficiency +6. It has legendary resistance 3 per day. Its actions has a multi attack, has a frightful presence. Every dragon has a frightful presence. Frightful presence is supposed to like make people scared and fearful of the dragons or whatever the creature is. With a wisdom for this one in particular, DC 19. It has a multi attack and can do one. It can do 3 attacks, 1 with a bite and 2 with its claws.
Okay.
I like the bite attack mechanic in my other dragon book. I can't remember off the top of my head. That's gonna Great Worms of Draka, where if they hit you once with a bite, they'll roll again, and if they roll a
Is it
successful,
like crushing?
yeah, it's crushing. But at that point, you're grappled by the bite, and so
Nice.
then it's like you need to try and get out of the grapple. If they take a certain amount of damage,
Brutal.
then they drop you. But there is that chance that you can get grappled, and maybe it flies, maybe it runs with you. Like now that's a scary position to be in. So that bite is a +14 to hit. Does 2d10 +8 piercing, and then 2d6 fire damage. Claw is a 14 to hit, 5-foot reach. That should be more. That should be like a 10 foot. And then it does 2d6 +8 slashing damage. It's got a tail attack. That was not mentioned in its multi attack. Interesting.
It should almost be like the ranged attack, like the melee attacks.
Mm-hmm.
I almost feel like it should be phrased where it's like whatever your unused movement, that's how close you need to be to hit it. You know what I mean? Because it's like it slows you down, being like, okay, I'm gonna move myself 60 feet. Okay, now I'm right by the thing, and now I'll attack.
Mhm.
Instead of saying, okay, they're within 60 feet. Okay, I'm gonna melee attack. You know,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
you just know you're there. I don't know. It's nuanced, but it's
yeah, because I mean that
frustration I have.
claw for a +5, like it needs to be right there. And these dragons are big, so why would you need to be right next to it? You're right. What would make story sense? I would say like 15-20 feet. It makes the most sense. Because adult red dragons are anywhere up to 800. So maybe a younger adult, sure, but an older adult red dragon that has a lot of life experience, that has that high reputation,
is
but-
really able to stretch out.
yeah,
And then paw somebody.
yeah, exactly.
Got 4 of them.
Yeah, because I mean the tail is a 15 to hit. So what if we double that? 30 feet to hit. Now you're really creating a monstrosity and something to be scared of. Where in that 15-foot range, like everything is just feels so small.
Compacted?
Yeah,
Yeah.
compacted. Like it's not as dangerous as it should be. Which is great for D&D because you can homebrew a lot of stuff, and this is one of the things that obviously we feel like we should homebrew.
Beast mode.
The fire breath recharge 5 and 6. The dragon exhales fire in a 60-foot cone. Does 18 d6 fire damage with a DC dexterity save 21.
I was going to tell you in the movie Damsel, which I just watched last night, as I mentioned already.
Yeah.
The fire breath of the dragon was like lava. So she was running downhill, and it's just like rolling after her.
Oh, that's so cool.
So cool.
I like that. There's so many different ways to flavor. Like now this older dragon, right? What if it goes as a younger dragon, like it's all fire, 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 and now these older dragons breathe lava out. Oh my gosh. And lava, and it does like lava damage in D&D. Lava damage in D&D does like 10d10 damage or something like that. Like it does a lot of damage.
Wow.
So after the initial 18d6, like if you're in the area, you're going to be taking lava damage. This is quickly becoming an extremely brutal fight.
Yeah.
It has legendary
You need a team
actions.
of 30 people.
Dude, for real. You need to take 3 legendary actions. It has 3 legendary actions. Detect, which it makes a
Which, who
wisdom
cares?
check to
Yeah.
detect. I mean, if you're fighting it,
It's the lamest thing on this stat sheet.
yeah, maybe. I guess if you have people that can go invisible, right? So like Molly's character has a cloak of invisibility, so maybe it has to try and detect. So that would be the only thing I can see. But if you're fighting a normal group of adventurers that doesn't have that invisibility and they're trying to hide, I mean, it knows everything in the layer. So if you're on top of something, it knows where you're at. I feel
Or if
like.
it just swung its tail in your direction, if it's got 30-foot range.
Yeah, and it's got blind sight up to 60 feet anyways, and a passive perception of 23. So if you're not rolling above a stealth check of 23, it still knows where you're at anyways. It can make an extra tail attack as a legendary action, and then wing attack, which would knock people out on the floor.
Ooh.
I would
If-
try and flavor something else here, like a pounce attack as a legendary action, because that was also described in the lore as it likes to stay on the ground. It can pounce and move around.
I feel like if it does a wing attack first as a legendary action, if it starts its turn with that and knocks everybody over and then does a lava spray, like breath attack, it's like, yeah, it's auto crit.
Yeah, it would be pretty nasty. All right, the last set of there's some lair actions. Oh my gosh. Okay, lair actions. We're gonna go quick on these. Magma erupts from a point on the ground that the dragon can see within 120 feet, creating
Nice.
a 20-foot, 5-foot radius geyser.
Perfect.
Each creature in the geyser must make a DC 15
Dead.
or take 6d6 fire damage on a fail save. Half as much
100%.
Tremor. This is the next thing. A tremor shakes in the lair 60-foot radius around the dragon. Each
Earthquake.
creature other than the dragon on the ground must take a DC 15 dex or be knocked prone. We have volcanic gas forms in a cloud of 20-foot radius. Sphere centered on the point the dragon can see within 120 feet. Its sphere spreads around corners. The area is lightly obscured. Lasts until initiative count 20 on the next round. Each creature that starts its turn in the cloud must make a DC 13 Constitution save throw. Be poisoned. So
This feels useful.
yeah, that one's just like more gas stuff.
Yeah, gas stuff.
Which I mean, it
Like
can,
chili.
It can be used.
Yeah.
like chili. Regional effects, I believe. Well, I'm not going to say the last one because I see more highlighted stuff.
Yeah. Let's
small-
just round out on regional attacks because we're in that hour 20.
Yeah, small earthquakes are common, right? We just said that in the lair action, but they're common within 6 miles of the dragon's lair. Water sources within a mile of the lair are supernaturally warm and tainted with sulfur.
Ooh.
That's interesting because it is described as smelling with sulfur and pumice.
And then the access to water, the desertification.
Yeah, exactly.
So the access to water becomes something too.
Rocky fissures within a mile of the dragon's lair form portals to the elemental plane of fire, allowing creatures of elemental fire into the world to dwell nearby. Wow.
All right. That is Red Dragons.
That's so cool.
Yeah. If you play it anywhere near what we just said, you don't have an adventuring party in the world that's going to make through that.
Yeah. No,
I mean, we're not even halfway through the page.
No,
honestly.
this is all the stuff that we looked at earlier. It's
On
just
Fizzbands?
repeating.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
repeating it from Fizzbands. So, cool dog, very loud. 5 stars is the top comment of the D&D Beyond page.
Fantastic.
That's hilarious.
So don't eat your red dragons too spicy. And
Yeah.
thank you for joining us
Hope
on
you
the
guys.
Great Thinker podcast.
Yeah. Hope you guys enjoy that. Hey, it's dragons. We're not going to do dragons here probably for another month or two if we get our
Yeah.
recording stuff set up. Not because we don't want to, but because we also have a lot of other things and topics that we want to talk about.
Yes.
I believe we're going to try and put these show notes on the Patreon, so please go and check that out now that we have it up and running, and hopefully life lets us post a little bit more there. We have
Yes,
some
it should.
interesting ideas that we want to do. But now we have a little bit of vacation time and more of a normal schedule on this side. So hopefully we can get those things up and running. We are passionate about it. One of my video ideas is how to run a game with an hour prep, because that's what I had to do maybe a month ago. And then I'm very interested in just putting some world building and lore documents and even our outlines and stuff on there. So we're going to be starting-
Ironically, that 1 hour prep class would probably end up like 8 or 9 hours if we did it complete justice.
Oh yeah.
So-
But I mean, I only spent I think an hour and a half, and I ran an 8-hour session. And we ended the session, and we looked outside and said, "The sun is rising." Oh no! What did we do?
Red dragon on the horizon. That's
Yeah,
what-
it sure felt like it. We were all like, "Oh no!"
Fuck.
Anyways, guys, thank you very much.
Peace.
Bye. Thank you for watching the Creative Thinker podcast. We put a lot of love and attention into every show, and with that comes a lot of time and money.
You can help us out through the support links in the description. You can sponsor an episode. You can subscribe to our Patreon. And as always, you can follow, like, subscribe, and share all of our channels.
We are eternally grateful for your support as we continue to bring you more episodes of the Creative Thinker podcast.
Creative thinkers all over the globe. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.